A female police officer and her team rushed to search for a young girl who called 911, saying her mother isn't waking up. Things take a dark turn when the officer arrives at the house. The police station was humming with the investigation of a murder that night, and emergency lines were jammed with calls from all parts of the city. Suddenly, there came an astonishing call from a little girl. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher answered. Silence, then heavy breathing. I'm hungry. Mommy doesn't wake up all day, the girl replied, sobbing. Where are you? The dispatcher asked. I don't know. Mommy told me to call 911 if I'm in trouble, the girl replied, almost in a whimper. The dispatcher tried to get more information by asking Maggie who she was. After some time of silence, Maggie gave an address she previously lived at, but didn't know her current location. Maggie, can you describe where you are now? The dispatcher asked. She said she saw outside large gray houses, a dog that was barking, trees, and an open gate which was broken. First, the dispatcher called Officer Nancy, 34, and her crew to go to the first address Maggie had given, but it didn't match any of the descriptions the girl had given. This meant they had to keep searching to determine where Maggie actually was. Anybody home? Nancy banged at the door, but no one responded. She looked through the glass window and saw that it was dark and dusty inside. It seemed like no one had lived there in a very long time. Nancy asked the neighbors and learned a family of 3 used to live there, a man, his wife, and a little girl named Maggie. Do you know where they are now? No, police officer, the man explained to Nancy. When Mr. Jakes died in an accident 6 months ago, his wife and daughter became so poor. The landlord asked them to vacate the house since they did not pay rent. I don't know their address, but once I heard from a friend that he had seen them living in a poorer area 12 miles away from here. Following the clues, Nancy took off to that spot. It was getting darker, and to make things worse, the area was out of electricity. Hush, 1 second. Nancy silenced the other officer when she heard a faint sound of a dog's barking somewhere quite far from their spot, remembered Maggie mentioning a dog which keeps on barking near where she was. That might be it. Let's go that way. Nancy told her team to follow her and reached a small, shabby house. Nancy flashed on the flashlight to see it more clearly. She saw a silhouette of someone near the window. She looked closely and saw a little girl who was crying and was waving her hand for help. A stray dog was constantly barking outside and charged towards the cops. Nancy quickly picked up a pebble and threw it at the dog, scaring it away. Then, she booted open the door and went in, not guessing very correctly about what else was inside. Hey, it's okay, don't cry. Nancy comforted Maggie, who ran to her crying. Traumatized, the girl kept chanting over and over again, I'm hungry. Mommy's not waking up all day, she's sleeping. She carried Maggie outside and put her in the car. Please give her some biscuits, I'll be right back, she said to her team, and went back inside to see where Maggie's mom was. Her eyes scanned everywhere for that woman, but she could not find her. Continuing further back into the house, Nancy came upon a door leading down into a basement. She came in and found Maggie's mother sprawled on the floor, unconscious. Nancy ran to the scene and touched the woman to wake her up, only to touch her cold body. Officers, hurry! Nancy screamed at once and called medics and social services. In just minutes, an ambulance arrived and took away the woman's body for autopsy. Nancy had no idea just how to tell Maggie, who only believed her mom slept. How can I explain it to her that mom is no more? Mommy! Where are they taking my mommy? Mommy, wait! Maggie chased after the ambulance. Nancy stopped her, holding her tightly and trying to soothe her. Honey, Mommy will be all right. Now be a good girl and listen to what I have to say. No, I want to go to Mommy! Let me go! Honey, Mommy will be back. You stay with me till then, okay? Sobs from Maggie, who hugged her teddy bear with white fingers due to the strong clutches, echoed around the precinct. When the social services arrived, their clinical announcement of foster care hit Nancy like a blow. The cop had seen enough tragedy. Still, there was something about this case, about this 5-year-old girl who did not yet know her mother was gone forever, that cut deeper than most. No, she heard herself say. I'll take her for tonight. She needs a proper meal and a bath and a chance to settle. I'll bring her to the shelter in the morning. There was the weight of the decision upon her shoulders, yet she could not rid herself of the feeling that this was what was meant to be. Jacob's eyebrows shot up when he opened their front door to a wife with a sleeping child in her arms. "Nancy, sweetheart." "Who?" "Later," she whispered, lines of exhaustion etched into her face. "May we have some dinner first?" Through dinner, Nancy filled them in on the events of her day. "The cause of death is still under investigation." "Has anybody spoken to her?" Jacob's voice was softly laced with concern. "She thinks her mom is just in the hospital." Her throat hitched. "How would you tell a child such a thing?" "She'll be devastated." "Poor little one." Jacob watched the sleeping child on their couch. "How long can we keep her?" It was then that the idea struck Nancy, blooming sudden and bright in her mind. "What if—" "Swing," she began, then took a deep breath. "What if we adopted her?" The words lay between them, thick with implication. "We've been trying so long for a baby," she went on. "All the tests come back normal. No complications, but nothing happens. I just don't understand what's wrong with me." Years of trying for fertility, countless disappointments, and finally Nancy's retreat into her career, all had left a void in the lives of the couple. Yet with Maggie, in those few scant hours, something in Nancy had begun to heal, as if a part of her heart finally stirred awake from its long dormancy. "Just look at her, honey," Nancy whispered, nodding toward the sleeping child that lay between them. "She's an angel who needs a real home. Someone's going to adopt her anyway. Why not us? She has brought so much light into our lives in just one day. Don't you feel it too?" Jacob looked down into Maggie's serene face, and something in his chest stirred. The void that had filled their home for so long was removed when she was near. It didn't matter to him that she wasn't his biological child, he thought. Family was about love and nothing to do with DNA. He nodded slowly, his smile dissolving as he started thinking of the days to come. The funeral would be their first real test. 2 days later, Nancy led Maggie through the funeral home with a heart full of pounds. The autopsy confirmed it, a heart attack, but how to explain death to a 5-year-old? "It's pretty quiet here, isn't it, sweetie?" Nancy tried to keep her voice steady. Maggie looked around with innocent curiosity. "There are butterflies and flowers everywhere, and all these candles. What's that big black box for?" Nancy hunched on her heels, speaking with considered words. "Sweetheart, sometimes when God loves someone very much, He invites them to live in His special house in heaven." "Heaven?" Maggie's eyes stretched wide. "Does it have a garden like this?" "Even more beautiful," Nancy strained out, her throat tight. "Your mommy. She's gone to live there now, and she asked me to take care of you here. But when will she come back?" She drew Maggie close, her tears falling onto the startled child's head. Sometimes some realities were not to be burdened by little shoulders. The innocent sorrow of this sleeping child stirred in her arms. Nancy knew, without a shadow of a doubt, what needed to be done. Months later, their home vibrated with celebration, friends and family in attendance for the official welcoming into the family of Maggie. Jacob rose, glass in hand, his eyes shining with emotion. "I once thought meeting Nancy was the happiest moment of my life," he began, voice thick with emotion. "Then I saw her standing in our doorway with this sleeping angel in her arms, and I found a whole new kind of joy. When she asked if we could be Maggie's parents, my heart had already answered." "Actually, sweetheart," Nancy said, interrupting him as she stepped forward with a little envelope in her hands. "We have to make that toast a little different. We're not going to be a family of 3. Jacob's brow furrowed in confusion until she pressed the envelope into his hands. Inside, a positive pregnancy test made his world tilt on its axis. The room erupted in cheers as comprehension finally dawned on his face, tears spilling free now. "To our family of 4, he managed, his voice breaking with joy as he pulled wife and daughter close, struck anew by how life's best gifts often came in unexpected packages.